40.
Say 39.
Number 1.
39.
1.
38.
37.
36.
35.
34.
33.
32.
31.
30.
29.
28.
27.
26.
25.
24.
23.
22.
21.
20.
19.
18.
17. 16.
15.
14.
13.
12.
11.
10.
9. 8.
7. 6. 5.
4.
3.
2.
1.
Sí, señor and señorito, it is time for the mouthwash. Hi, and welcome to the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty fresh take on politics. And sorry, we got a little late start tonight, but well, it's like a circus backstage right now. I think we have like 6 people on tonight. So our guest, our star tonight, John Rust, he is en route back from Evansville. He was at a political event, and he's on his bus coming back. And so we'll have him on here directly. But we have a lot to talk about. Lucy, welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games. That's what Lucy put in the comments. And hey, if you have a comment or a question, just put it in the comments. And if I see it there and it makes sense, if it doesn't make sense, hey, I might put it up there anyway. Sometimes we put up the silly comments. So have a comment to go up there. We got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. This is that old pesky two primary deal here, that if you didn't vote in the last 2 primaries and you're trying to run under one of the other parties, they have the right to keep you off the ballot unless you get a note from your mother or your county chairman. He can write you a note and say, hey, it's okay. I don't care if you ever voted, but you're on. But if he doesn't like you or for some other reasons, he may say, hey, sorry, you got to wait or vote in some more primaries and all that. And there's a lot of excuses why they do that. And then we have small talk tonight. I know you might have missed it last week, but we have it tonight going. So you'll see that. I think you'll find it interesting. It's Mark. Mark is talks like he's got more sense these days. I don't know if he's lost his edge or what, but a lot of times he'll have a different viewpoint on things. But I think he agrees right along with what we're talking about tonight. So first of all, we have some new panel guests here. We have a fill-in. We have David Shelton. He's a clerk in Indiana here, and he's very, very, very intelligent guy that knows his way around the clerk office. He did run for Secretary of State under the Republican. He wanted to get nominated for that. I was very impressed with his job there, and he's going to be sitting in for Jordan tonight, who's sitting in for Tiffany. So there's 3 on there. And then, hey, we have Ed Liptrap back. It's been quite a few shows since we've had Ed, and he is en route to his house right now. So we're going to have him on here on the panel. And then we have Lucy, our wonderful Lucy, who rarely misses a show unless her kids are moving or doing something like that or need some food, a sandwich made. That's what it is. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on Charles Bookwalter. Let's see here. Let's see. I probably got, there he is. Hey, Charles, how are you doing tonight?
Great, John. How are you? Can you hear me okay? I'm sounding.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
yeah. Looking good. Looking good.
You're looking good too. Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's right. You're getting the hang of this podcasting stuff down. I'm sure that it's got to be one of these things you do in these days of politics. You know, hey, you can't get any cheaper way of communicating than this. I started doing these internet shows about 4 years ago. This show's at 141. I started with Your Voice, Your Call, and then handed that off to Chris Moore, and he has that on the Patriot Soapbox. And then we also have the Do Something Indie show, which Lisa's been sort of doing that one. I got a little preview coming up here for that. But anyway, Charles, you are just great to get a hold of. I sent you a text this afternoon about filling in. You and David Shelton and David beat you. So I said, well, Charles has had some experience with this two-party thing. So Charles, tell our audience a little bit about yourself, what the heck you're doing on the Mouthwash show, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about this two primary rule.
Okay, thanks, John. I'm going to keep it brief about myself because I'd really like to. I really haven't had much of an opportunity to talk about the two primary rule, how it affected me, and how I've kind of fought against it. But it impacted me because I ran for Congress in 2022, and I was eligible to run for Congress on December 31st, 2021, and I was ineligible on January 1st, 2022 because of the Indiana General Assembly adding an amendment to Indiana Code 3827, which made the one primary rule the two primary rule. And so now here's the big kicker. In 2022, my candidacy for Indiana delegate to the Republican Party was not challenged. So I was on the ballot as a Republican for a delegate to the state party. No one challenged that. I was only challenged to run as a Republican for District 4, for Congress for District 4. And so that's a big part of what I want to talk about, is that this rule isn't applied the way that everyone says it was applied. But just to wrap it all up and, who I am and what I'm doing. So, and I'm running in the 4th Congressional District, in a district where the primary is the race. That if there's not a primary challenger to the Republican candidate or incumbent in the 4th District, that's who you're going to get, because the 4th District doesn't elect a Democrat. And so if the party is removing the primary challenger to the incumbent in the primary, then the people of the 4th District aren't getting an option. And as I see now, as I do this for the second time, this is what it takes to get the best candidate in Washington, D.C. It takes a primary challenger, because the primary challenger pores over the record, the primary challenger investigates the voting record, and the primary challenger holds the incumbent accountable to their voting record. So if you have, and last thing I'll say before you ask questions is, in the 2020 race, the primary challenger to Jim Baird was removed for the one primary rule. His name was James Peters. He had never voted in a primary. And so they removed him from the ballot, even though he was a Republican, for not having one primary. And in there, the same chair that holds the election, that sits in the election, the Indiana election division, told him, and it's on record, Mr. Peters, don't worry about it. You can come back and you can run again in 2022 in the Indiana's 4th Congressional District, because I'm sure you'll have one primary by then. But they passed a two primary rule, so James Peters could not have, in fact, run in 2022 on the ballot, but it didn't matter. I did, and they removed me from the ballot. And there's no debating whether I am a conservative Republican or not. And they didn't debate that.
Yeah. It's about this competition thing. That's what the title of this show is, fair competition. It seems we don't have that. And, in John Rust's case, it's very similar. I mean, as far as I know, there's no one else running for the Indiana Senate seat that Mike Braun is vacating. So, it seems like, wow, we have zero choices again on that. And we're going to get to John, and we were waiting for his cell service to get in better places here. But now you're good to go, right? They can't take you off the ballot for the two primary rule, right?
Yeah, that can't happen unless they pass the three primary rule, but they're out of session, so they're not going to do that. But I did want to make a few points, if I can, John, and you can interrupt me, but I want to make sure to make a few points, because we're going to talk about this, and I'm not going to be on the show the entire time. And I constantly hear from establishment type pundits that I don't think that they've thought this through all the way, because they all say the same thing. They say that they're doing this and they agree with the two primary rule because it keeps Democrats off the ballot. And that's the case. From the court case said the same thing. It's due to party rating. And frankly, I just think that that's not true, because in reality, it just keeps everybody off the ballot. And on that day in February, where I had to go in front of the election division, there was no contest whether I was a Republican. They admitted it. The other attorney on the other side, is part of the Republican Party, admitted it, that I'm a Republican. They were only taking me off the ballot for the 2 primary rule. There were Democrats there that were taken off for the Democrat ticket, and they had run in the election. Get this, the prior election, they ran. They got 10,000 votes, but they still only had 1 primary vote. And so they were going to run again in 2022, and the party kicked them off the ballot, even though 2 years before they had run and got 10,000 votes. And like I said, I did run as a state delegate. So as much as the pundits want to say, and those in the establishment, this is what they say, it is for party rating. That is not true. I was on the ballot as a state delegate. They removed me. They knew that I was a Republican.
They must have missed that part. Well, here's something that's sort of interesting. So my wife got removed as a state delegate because she only voted on the question in the primary, because there was I think we had a referendum or something on there. So she voted on that, and they said she didn't vote in the primary, but I know that she did, but they said that she didn't. So that she voted in the primary, but she didn't. So,
she must have pulled she had to have pulled a Republican ticket. And then look, so let's just talk about that. So that's another thing that I want to make a point about, is that all of this, again, the establishment type say we believe in this because it keeps Democrats off the ballot. But we know very well there are some issues, and people have one issue like lockdowns, mandates, guns, abortion. These issues are so important that if your party, which can be kind of fluid and changes their status on an issue, let's say that the Republican Party decides that they want to mandate vaccines on every walking person, I guarantee you a lot of people will flee the Republican Party and go to another party, because that issue, that one issue alone, and we all know there is one issue that's so sensitive to you that if your party platform adopts that, then you're willing to walk away from your party. And if that happens in the United States, or at least in Indiana, then you're pretty much married to your party for 6 years. You have to be. And in this day and age, and after COVID, we all know that the government is going to do things that are going to be, that you never thought were going to be possible. And you're going to question your party. And if at any point you decide to switch from a Democrat to a Republican or Democrat, that this 2 primary rule, in fact, puts a 6-year waiting period before you can run for office on issues that are important of the day, that people need to get immediate access and be in politics immediately. And so the way they could fix this, John, the way they could fix this is having closed primaries. For goodness sakes.
Oh, wait. We can't be talking about solutions here. That might allow competition.
Yeah. And the Supreme Court, and I only know this because I fought this in the trial court, and we fought this in the appellate court, and neither of these courts ruled on the merits of the case. They only ruled that it's moot because the election has passed. So the Indiana courts will not rule on this case. And the fact is, if they were certain that this was constitutional, you rest assured that they would rule on the merits of this case immediately and prove to everybody. What has been ruled, there have been 3 cases, I believe it's 3, where the Supreme Court has upheld a ballot access for someone that has to prove they're in the party for 11 months has been one case. 12 months has been another case. And in the Supreme Court, they ruled that 23 months, this is a New York case. It might have been the Celebres case, that I can't remember exactly what case it was, but 23 months was too long a waiting period for someone to get ballot access.
And we're talking about 6 years. Yeah.
We're talking about
this is, and in your case, it could have been easily solved if the county chair would just say, hey, we're going to put you on the ballot. And same with John Rust, it appears that it just doesn't look right. It may be legal, but it just doesn't have the right look, smell, or taste of any of this. So, Charles, I appreciate you coming on here and and explaining that, because I know that you've
Sorry, can I say one more thing? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, sure, go ahead. We give you limited time on here, and especially if you're a panelist, you get a certain amount of time. So yeah, go right ahead.
You said smell and taste, and it reminds me, because due to COVID, I still have difficulties smelling and tasting certain things. But the fact is, again, that this happened at a perfect time. They made the two primary rule in an open primary state, because both Republicans and Democrat incumbents knew that the people were not happy with their overreaction to COVID and the tyranny that they brought on Hoosiers. And so I honestly believe that they came together, or a think tank or some consultants told leadership, Indiana Republican leadership, that they needed to do something, because people like me, people like Charles Bookwalter, were going to come out and challenge incumbents based solely on how they responded to COVID and how the governor had lockdown and emergency powers. And that's why legislators like Kurt Nisley called it the Incumbent Protection Act. And remember, Kurt Nisley was in the middle of this the whole time. Yeah. So he saw that it was incumbents, what appeared to be incumbents protecting their job in light of a very difficult time in America and the world, when governments usurped too much power and overreacted to something, and they didn't want to lose their jobs because of it. They didn't want to be held accountable. Thank you, John, for allowing me the opportunity to go off on that. I've had that pent up for so long.
Yeah, I can tell. I love that energy. It's going to be interesting. Old Jim Baird doesn't know what's coming, so that is awesome. And you've obviously you've lived this, so this isn't just something you read in the paper. This is something that you lived. And I've had issues with ballot access and signatures being thrown out, which, is suspect. And, it seems like competition is something they don't want. But unfortunately, you got guys like you and me that don't quit. That's so, right. It's, and there's others. There's a lot of others that are coming behind us that we may just be some trailblazers for them to get involved, because obviously it's like some of our legislators are like ghost riding a bike. You just let it go and see where it wrecks. So I appreciate you coming on. I'm going to go ahead and play. Let's see. We got Do Something Indie tomorrow night, 8 p.m. with Lisa. We're going to talk about Recovery Out Loud, Roll. It is a program that if you are addicted, you go to this Roll. It meets at our art center on Mondays, and it meets all over. It's like AA type of thing. And Lisa's going to talk to our leader, Melissa, that runs that here. So I'm going to play the preview. Charles, thank you for coming in and getting this thing started. And we'll see you on the panel again real soon. So
I hope so.
And we appreciate your availability. You know what I say, 80% of why I vote for somebody is if you can get a hold of them. So you're definitely a guy that you can get a hold of. So thanks for coming in. Sure. Let's look at this little preview for the show tomorrow night. All right. There you go. That is our preview for tomorrow night at 8 p.m. You can see that on the Do Something Indie page, the Twitter, and the YouTube and all that stuff. So, Mr. Rust, I see you're on the bus. You're through your troubled cell phone area. And
yes, I'm right downtown Bedford right now.
Okay, yeah.
On US 50.
That's where I get my limestone, and from Bloomington and Bedford. That's a limestone capital of the world.
Yes.
We don't know how lucky we have it with this giant limestone deposit we sit on here in Indiana. So, John, we appreciate you coming on the show, and I assume you were listening to Charles Bookwalter talk about some things. And does that sound familiar?
I learned a lot. That sounds extremely familiar. And it's exactly what you both said. It is the Incumbent Protection Act. They do not want competition. They don't want outsiders running that can bring something new to the table that can fix problems people are facing.
Yeah. So tell our viewers, maybe they haven't heard of you, but I've heard some of your commercials on the local radio here, and I'm quite impressed. So tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and And then we'll get on some questions here, and then we'll get this panel on here because I'm excited because we got David Shelton, we got Ed Liptrap, and the famous Lucy Brenton getting ready to get on here and ask some questions.
Okay, my name is John Rust. I am a chicken farmer from Seymour, Indiana, running for the United States Senate. I got into this race just this year. I've never ran for political office in my life, but it just is something that I feel very strongly about with what's happening in Washington on how our career politicians, they don't know what they're doing. This national debt is crushing people with the inflation it is causing. I think we have to send people to Washington who are outsiders, who have had experience with fiscal responsibility on my own farms and business. It's just something we have to have. And I think that's why they have this law. They're scared of people like me running.
Yeah, that definitely is something that we've run across several people that have been on this show that talk about that. So real quick, let's review your primary record. And I know that you told me the other day when we had our tech check that you had missed a primary because it got moved and you were unavailable, or what happened there?
Yes, the last Republican primary I was in voted in was 2016 with Ted Cruz, Donald Trump. Back then, I was going to vote in 2020, but they moved it because of COVID.
Yeah, that's what we just talked about. That COVID was some of the reasons.
And so
when they do things.
And so when they moved it, I couldn't make the second vote, so I missed that. And so now they're saying, well, you missed 2 primaries in a row. So much for you. You can't run. But, you know, I think it's such an obscure rule. No one's ever heard of it. I certainly never heard of it.
Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties
until
here.
Like June of this year. Back in January about, well, this is the way we can.
Now, did you vote in the 2022 primary?
No, I don't think I don't think there was one for where I live.
Oh, okay. So you only have
I only had the 2016 and 2020.
Well, don't they have state reps that are? I think that state reps have to run every 2 years.
Okay.
So there should have been a midterm.
Yeah, there should have been. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's and obviously your county chair would have to write you a note. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And they have not done that to this point.
And they have not done that to this point, and they're very, very much holding to the 2 primary rule to keep me off the ballot, even though I have never given to the Democratic Party in my life. I have only given to Republican candidates starting back in the mid-1990s up until today. If you look at my FEC campaign donations, it's always been 100% to the Republican Party and conservative candidates, very conservative candidates like Ted Cruz.
Yeah. So this is the thanks you get. That's how that's
right.
What it's like. So fine. How do you do? Fine. How do you do? All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead. We have actually a commercial, a political commercial. Imagine that. We have an election coming up here in Indianapolis in 19, and I'm going to play my wife's little commercial here. I think you might enjoy it. And then I'm going to bring on the panel here, and we're going to do this, John. So just enjoy Lisa's commercial. And I just want to tell you, she did this all on her own. I had no input other than the fact that she forgot to put her paid for by Lisa campaign at the end. That's the only input I had on this. So here you go. Let's listen. This is a little bit over a minute long.
Change is the only constant. Change is an opportunity. It is a transformation. Change is in our nature. It is what drives us. Change is taking that one step to better ourselves and to better our community that is around us. I want to serve those who aren't being served. My story is that I am already doing the work. I am already serving my district. And before living out that level of service, I was an executive in human resources in Indianapolis with some of the most transformational organizations in this city. the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Galleon Sports and Outdoor, and Napa Auto Parts. Leading big organizations like that and inspiring motivational leadership and change within them is what I bring to the city of Indianapolis. I want to know your story. Tell me, and then let me inspire change within our community. Lisa for Indy. Paid for by Lisa for Indy campaign.
Yeah, I helped with that last little part there. So, John, I'm going to put you on the sidelines, and I'm going to bring out some people. I'm going to bring out our guest. I think I'm going to do David Shelton first because he is a guest. But I'm awful glad that Ed's been able to make it. So we're going to bring David out here, put him on the hot seat, and David Shelton, how are you doing tonight? Now, you're the clerk of Knox County. Am I right?
That is correct. I'm also the chairman of Knox County as well.
Oh, the chairman. So you could write a note if somebody was to get on the ballot, right?
Potentially. Here in my simple committee, we evaluate candidate requests like that. So we spread the love among the 4 citizens committee for sheriff.
Okay, so it's not a dictatorship like some areas. So
no.
Yeah. So yeah, I bet you get some interesting inquiries on that. And I do thank you for such short notice to jump on the panel here. And I'm impressed by your button collection back there. I don't know if you have one of these. This is a good one. John Schmitz for president. He ran for president in 1972.
It'd take me forever and a day to find one, but I know I do have one.
Really? You have one? Oh, all right.
Yes.
Well, hey.
You're seeing maybe 25% of the collection behind me here.
Yeah, that is quite impressive. So you've been, how long have you been the chair down there?
I've been the chair just a little over a year now.
Okay, but you've been in politics for quite a while.
I've been in public service for quite a while.
Public service, okay, yeah. And you ran for the Secretary of State at the state delegate convention or whatever you call the state convention.
Yes.
And that was quite a contest of a lot of talent in that pool of people that ran. And that's an interesting way to select candidates because there was quite a bit of competition and it was spirited competition. So now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to bring on Ed Liptrap, and I know that ladies should go first. Lucy's going to be last, but let's bring on Ed and let's see if we. I recognize that guy. It's like, hey, go ahead and unmute yourself, Ed. I know you've been on the show for very long. I mean, for a while, but Ed, how you doing? And your Notre Dame, they had a heartbreaker the other day against the Buckeyes. The Buckeyes got them, and that was hard to watch.
Oh, that was further back. This weekend was even worse versus Louisville because I don't know if you heard me honking as I was driving by. I actually drove down for the game and then drove back and actually down in your guys' neighborhood for once. But it was late at night, and I know you needed your sleep. You probably had a good job the next day.
Was that Saturday night? We had grandkids over. So they were sleeping. They wore me out. We took them out putting campaign signs up. That's how you do it. So Ed, it's been a minute since you've been on, but we're glad to have you. And so you're just in time for this 2-party primary rule, and it's going to be a good time. So let's go ahead and bring Lucy on here, and let's get this thing started up here. Hey, Lucy, what's happening? Didn't steal your meme. Okay.
I discovered it.
You
discover a continent where there are already people living with civilizations and constitution-like societies. So I don't know. In my house, we have Native American heritage. And so in my house, Christopher Columbus Day is actually European Occupation Day.
So we have Incumbent Protection Day, and we have all these different days that we have. I'm waiting for Old White Dude Day. I'm just hoping for that again. Old White Dude. I want that day to come along. It seems like we don't get our day, but I want a whole month.
And nice to see you, Ed. We've missed you.
I know it. It's like I was like part of the gang's all here, so it's good. So let's get our man of the hour out here. Let's get John Rust back out on the hot seat here. And then we're going to talk about this 2-party primary thing. And I'm going to give David the first crack at this thing and to have a comment, a question, or whatever. So go ahead, David.
All right. So you have a court date tomorrow. I'm going to have a pretty extensive deposition schedule tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yes. They want me for 7 hours tomorrow.
Well, let me give you some practice for that, okay? So
Okay.
2022, you said you didn't vote in the primary because you didn't think there was one. I believe you had a 7-member or a 7-candidate primary for the 9th Congressional District. Isn't that correct, in 2022 there in the 9th District?
I don't know.
Okay, you did. You had about 7 candidates. In 2020, I heard you state that you didn't vote because the primary was delayed. Well, it was delayed, but your opportunity to vote was extended by a month. Now, as an election official, I know how I handle my elections. I bent over backwards to make sure anybody and everybody could vote who wanted to vote. I personally went to people's homes to deliver ballots when they've been diagnosed with COVID. Uh, the only reason why you haven't voted in the 22 primary, the 2020 primary, and the 2018 primary is because you didn't want to. In Indiana, we have such an open and enhanced system for voting early. That's the only reason why you don't have a primary voting history, is because you just flat out didn't want to.
Was that a question? I don't.
That was more of a statement.
Yeah.
But, why didn't you vote in those years? I mean, I do want to applaud you for wanting to get out there. And it takes a special person to go on a statewide stage like that. But why did you not vote in the last 3 primaries that you had an opportunity to vote in?
Yeah, that's a question for you, John. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, he just wanted to know why you haven't voted in the last in those primaries.
I voted in 2016. I did not vote in 2020. Correct. And I didn't know that it was required to vote. I believe you vote in the fall elections, and I voted in those. And, I still believe I'm an American citizen. I'm entitled to vote. I'm entitled to participate. 80% of Hoosiers are banned from running for political office based on this law that very, very few people know about.
Yeah, I mean,
and,
I didn't know.
And when they hear that, they're like, "Oh my gosh, well, we didn't know this law was there. I certainly didn't know that was there. For this very obscure law that I doubt. If you polled people, I doubt 5 or 10%, if that, knew about this law."
Yeah. So Ed, what do you think about this law? I know that you voted in everything. You could probably run for whatever, right? I mean, have you missed any of these primaries?
No, I have not, and no, I do not want to run. So yeah, we've discussed that before at length. I guess my question here, more than anything, and I applaud you for wanting to run. I'm not going to question why you didn't want to or why you didn't vote. But I guess my question is, from a party standpoint, what would you consider to be the litmus test for? I know, we've seen in some of the comments here, I've been reading through these and people talking about people running in different parties, just switching parties at will. What would be the litmus test, or do you believe there shouldn't be one for somebody to run within a certain party, whether it be a Republican or Democrat?
I think you look at who the person has voted for in the past and who they financially contributed to in the past. And if you look at my financial record, you'll see I have only ever given to very conservative Republican candidates like Ted Cruz. And, that just shows that, I'm absolutely a very conservative Republican. People say, well, you voted back in a Democratic primary, over a decade ago. I voted for local candidates at the local level that were agriculture friendly and business friendly that needed support. I don't believe that just because I voted in a Democratic primary over a decade ago, that means I'm a Democrat. I've always been a Republican.
So
can I weigh in here? Because I've kind of let this
next.
Go on. I appreciate that, John.
I
because
knew
what I'm
hearing,
hearing,
get the 2 out of the way and then let you burn it down. So go ahead. I got the matches. Let's go.
What I'm hearing is a competition for fraud, and I'm also hearing, this is an incumbent retirement plan, right? If we can find little ways to chip away at having competition come in, just, like a lack of term limits. Although, as Andy Horning has said so many times, we have term limits. They're called elections, right? So if there was just some, courage among the populace. But this kind of nonsense doesn't happen in the Libertarian Party. We have a convention at our own expense. We don't ask the taxpayers to underwrite the advertising of our candidates in a primary. And those who are participating, who come to the convention, who are members of the party, are the ones that, get to be delegates and vote. Of course, that, is handled at the county level on the delegate side. So I would just like to point out that all of this nonsense is happening because there is so much fraud that's available. Votes can be bought. And the people that are more willing to sell those votes and to sell out the general public are those that are preventing people like John Rust, like Charles Bookwalter, preventing them in every way possible from coming up and being competition. So I'd just like to point out once again the superiority of the libertarian way of thinking and doing things. And most importantly, what is it costing the taxpayers of Indiana for all this nonsense to happen with Republicans and Democrats? And so my question for you, John, is how would you handle this? Would you be willing as a Republican to say, you know what, it's absolutely ludicrous that we're asking the taxpayers to underwrite financially the advertising of our primary candidates? Would you be willing to stand up and move for that to stop being taxpayer funded?
I think we have to open it up to where all taxpayers and voters are eligible to run for public office. I want to stick to, why are we excluding 80% of Hoosier voters from being able to run? Why am I being excluded to be able to exercise my vote to, vote for who I want to? I just think that's wrong, and that's why I'm fighting this.
The reason I would say, I would posit, John, that the reason that you are being prevented from running for office is because you've chosen to align yourself with a whole bunch of statists, aka Republicans. And if you were a Democrat, I would point out the same thing. It's your party that you champion the philosophies of that is preventing you from running. If you were a libertarian, if you simply agreed to the non-aggression principle, if you agreed that taxation is theft, got to work that in. If you agreed that people have the right to determine their own lives, the course of their own lives, without interference from the state, without fear of having their slave status converted into a draft and being sent off to a foreign war, which I believe is going to happen very soon, it's your fault that you're not able to run because you've aligned yourself with statists.
Well, that sounds like, I got the simple answer. It's a club and you ain't in it. And the other answer is, it sounds like Lucy's inviting you to run as a libertarian. So, I mean, hey, you could throw that in their face. Hey, I'll run as a libertarian.
No, I'm not a libertarian. I'm a very conservative Republican. You know what libertarian or liberal had, do you know, that donated to Ted Cruz? You know, that I'm not a Republican. I'm a conservative Republican. I believe in conservative ideals. I'm against abortion. I am against pornography in front of kids at school. I'm against transgender ideology being taught in school. I think schools should be about education, not indoctrination. I think we have to have fiscal responsibility. I think those are conservative bedrock Republican ideals. And that's why I'm a Republican. That's why I want to run in the Republican Party.
I am against all of those things as well. So I am considered a more conservative libertarian. But the thing about libertarians is that we try to be more even-minded with the left, with what you would call left ideology or right ideology. We're trying to keep the government out of your bedroom and your wallet.
Good luck with that. Hey, on that note, I think this would be a good time to put in small talk. So I think you'll enjoy. I think this will fit right in with this. So let's go ahead and listen to Mark Small, and then we'll have some more questions on the other side.
Hello, this is Small Talk. I want to talk to you about political parties. When the framers of the Constitution met in Philadelphia in 1787, they didn't like parties. They called them factions. They thought factions would tear apart a government, but they are forming parties even as they argued against them. You need to put this in the context today of what would be in the best interest of someone trying to destroy a system built by humans. And the most obvious thing would be they would make sure that to the extent possible, they put incompetent people in to positions of leadership. Think about that. Also, think about An individual, Jeffrey Hinton, who is one of the co-founders of Google, was on 60 Minutes last weekend. He said, in terms of artificial intelligence, Stephen Hawking said there is no artificial aspect to it. The computers already have reached a point of being able to think for themselves beyond our control. Now imagine if all those computers are following one computer leader, and that computer leader wanted to have the most incompetent people possible in office. Who runs our political parties? Are they our political parties? Who's first person plural in this? I want you to know that Hal was a fictional entity created from movies. I'm Mark Small. This is Small Talk. Peace while we still can have it.
I think that AI took over Mark Small, or he's either that or he's a robot now. What do you think, Ed? That's not the same Mark Small you remember, is it, Ed?
No, not at all.
So were you able to fashion any more questions or comments from what you've heard so far, or maybe what Mark talked about? Hey, this Constitution said we don't like these factions. So what do you say?
Well, I did have one question. It was a follow-up question based on, what John's answer. And I do think, and there are people that I have talked to who are alarmed that don't think it's fair that you have to have, this voting history to be able to run. But another concerning part to me of John's answer is when you start talking about you have to have this financial history. And I think there's a lot of people. So if we're saying we're opening it up to all Hoosiers, what about those Hoosiers that have never, donated to a party, never donated to a candidate? Are they suddenly out in the cold? And I think if we're talking about what people are afraid of, I don't know that that's any a better solution. So I don't know. I want to kind of circle back around to that to John and just if we could get some clarification on that. Would that be the only litmus test there?
Oh, absolutely not. I was just saying that in regards to me. I've only given to Republican candidates all my life. That's what I'm saying. I'm a Republican. You're not going to find where I ever gave to a Democratic candidate, and that's just how I was showing that I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican.
Yeah, it seems like proving you're something is the more of the litmus test, and I get it. We don't want people crossing over. I think that there was when Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama ran, there was a crossover to get for people to Republicans to vote in the Democrat to sort of mess that up, and I think there's been in the past vice versa on that, and I know that that's maybe where that one primary rule came in, but the two primary rule. Biggest thing I see the problem with it was they put it in effect without, letting people have opportunity to vote in two primaries. And Charles Bookwater's case was a perfect example of they put that in place and he had no way to do that. And say you're 18 and, you want to run for office, you can't run until you're at least 20. Now, I don't trust kids running anything, so I think that's a good deal, but it's still not fair. If you're 18 and you can vote, you should be able to run. So those are the type of things there. So David Shelton, what do you think about 18-year-olds that get out of school? Should they have to wait?
I've actually signed over one 18-year-old to run for office, but he was kind of special to me. It's my son when he ran last year. He was the youngest person on the ballot statewide, and he actually won as an 18-year-old in 2022. So, it just depends on the person. We do have a lot of younger people in my community, my county here, who are getting involved at a younger age. They're involving themselves with the local Republican Party. So we're getting to know them, getting to know what their belief systems are. So, I would consider them.
Yeah, and we were talking about the fact that you do yours. You're not the dictator in Knox County. You are. It's like you have a committee that you have a think tank that sort of says yay, nay, and otherwise. It's not the will of one person, probably from somebody from the state saying, "Hey, I don't want to see that dude on the ballot. Don't sign the letter." I know that we've had this issue with Madison County. There's been a lot of these issues. At what point do you think this becomes a real? I mean, it's already a mark on the party. So I'm going to open this question up. I guess I'm going to ask a question to John. At what point do you think this is going to be an issue that people are just going to really just get fed up with and just say, you know what, this is silly. You guys don't want competition. I'm going to vote for the other party. So do you think we're there yet?
I think we're getting very close to it. I think, because Jim Banks is acting so, how do you describe, how he's reacting to me running against him? He's like, by saying the things that I'm not, he's saying that I'm a liberal. He's saying that, I'm a Democrat. It's, if I'm those things, why is he so scared of running against me? Because, that's easily proven. And, one way or the other, why is he so scared of me running against him?
He's chicken of a chicken farmer.
Right.
So is there anybody else that's even thrown their hat in? I know that Jim Banks is basically steamrolled. He came out early. He got endorsements by everybody, the Pope. I mean, everybody. He's got an endorsement. I'm surprised you didn't endorse him, but he is just basically scared everyone off. Is there anyone else running?
I don't think there is a serious candidate running, no, other than myself.
Okay, yeah, and
I don't know that I expect other people to get in. I hope.
Yeah. So and then you have a big case. You have a big court date tomorrow, I guess, or deposition. Is that what we're talking about?
I have a deposition tomorrow. Yes.
Okay, and we thank you for coming on. I know that you have a lot going on. Obviously, you're coming back from something and all that. So we appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead. We're going to do one more. Lucy, you got another question, comment? Or
nope. I'm going to let John go because the discussion that I start would keep him up, man. He needs to get some sleep for that deposition.
How about you, Ed? I mean, you might as well milk this thing. You're going to be back to salt now. For those viewers, this is Ed has he's got a really good job now. He's actually towing his own weight for once. I mean, come on, really. And then he's teaching these kids baseball. And is it softball or baseball? What are we in right now?
Baseball. We're doing baseball this fall.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's so tough up in South Bend. They make them play in the dark. I mean, that's that's the best way to be a good hitter is to turn the lights out and pitch the ball and see if you can hit it. It's sort of like
you hit in the dark, you can hit anytime.
Yeah, it's like dodging a wrench. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge anything. So Ed, you got a final comment here for our guest?
Yeah, I think, and I hear what Lucy says, and I think people who have listened a long time know that I agree a lot with her. The one question I have, and this is probably less for John than it is for Lucy, is that even if the Democrat and the Republican Party, and maybe this is a question for everybody, even if we did what the Libertarians did and had a convention and posted that, do we really think that that would solve the problem of corruption and everything else and cronyism and everything else that goes on along? And I know what my answer is, but I would throw that out to everybody else, whether that really is the solution either. I don't know that it is.
Well, you're absolutely right, Ed. It does not take away the corruption, but what it does do is it takes the bill away from the taxpayers of Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, David, I'll have you do it next, and then we'll get John.
All right.
What's
Mr.
your
Russ,
thought on that?
Well, I have a kind of an unrelated question here I'd like to ask Mr. Russ. Can you please tell me why in the last 9 years your voter registration status has changed to inactive 3 different times in the last 9 years?
That's what you get when you got a clerk on the show. He can look up these things.
I'm sorry. What was I don't know exactly what you're asking about.
Your voter status changed from being active to inactive 3 different times in the last 9 years. Most recent time your registration changed to inactive on July 2nd of 2019. Prior to that, it was July 26th of 2016. And before that, it was July 22nd of 2024 due to the statewide voter list maintenance mailing. That's where the state election division mails to every registered voter 2 different postcards starting right after a primary and then following it up in July again. 2 different cards mailed to you by the state election division were returned to the state election division as being undeliverable. Can you explain how that was?
Oh, I know the answer, but I'll let John do it.
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, I know the answer for you. You get your mail at your mom's house because you live back in the woods. I knew the answer from talking to you the other day. It's like, so you guys got to remember, he lives out in the country. This isn't, he's a chicken farmer. He's not like this
farm boy,
urban
right?
guy that's got a mailbox in front of his house. So, that. So, David, tell everyone how that works, because I think there's a lot of folks that don't know about that deal. So, go ahead and explain that again.
All right, so currently voter list maintenance happens every odd number of year. That changed a few years ago. It used to be after, after midterm elections, and they changed it just a few years ago. So every odd number year currently, the state election division will mail out a postcard to every registered voter. Those postcards go out a couple weeks after a primary. If the card is received by a registered voter at that address, they don't return it. They just throw it in the trash unless they get it somehow from a family member. Then they can mark it, and I don't live here anymore. Please update my voter history. If the first card is returned to the state election division, the state election division will then mail out a second mailing to them, end of July, August right now. And if that one is returned to the state election division as being undeliverable, well, that triggers a change to your voter status. So if you're previously an active voter, you would change to an inactive status. If you're already in an inactive status, that could be a trigger to cancel your voter registration in Indiana. But to me, having so many return in such a short period of time, as an election administrator, it raises a red flag. Do you actually live where you're registered to vote at? Now, you mentioned that, you may live on the same property, but I don't understand how the cards were returned to the state and not, given to you by your mom if she's getting your mail for you.
I live out in the woods. Well, not quite out in the woods, but I live out in a very rural area, just barely inside Washington County. And I can support John in the fact that our mail delivery service sucks. We actually lost a lot of mail after the snow truck came through and took out our mailbox. Um, and that happened actually on 2 different pieces of property that we have. So I can easily see how out here that there might be some problems. And by the way,
snowstorms in May, June, and July, though.
Yeah, but see, here's the problem. They get used to not delivering your mail, and I'm not trying to hate on the U.S. Post Office. The ladies there are very nice, but when that happens, they're supposed to hold your mail for you at your local post office. I've had things from Amazon, for example, come. I'm in between 2 different post offices. They've bounced back and forth. I'm trying to start my own little nursery. By the way, I am a chicken lady, John. My chickens are dead right now. I got to start with some more. But I'm trying to do the homesteading thing, and I've bought all these plants and had them destroyed and dead because our post office bounces them back and forth and won't drive down my driveway. So I can vouch that living in Fishers versus living in Washington County is a very different USPS experience.
Yeah, you won't be getting those chickens in the mail because they actually will mail chickens in the mail. John, how many chickens do you have before you answer that question? How many?
We have about 21 million right now.
That's a few chickens. Yeah, you could spare a couple for Lucy. Could you send about 10 or 20 chickens over to Lucy's place there? Because
I'm a chicken snob. I do black Australorps and Brahmas.
Oh yeah, well, never mind. I tried to get you free chickens, and here you go. You do all that.
I don't want his genetically modified Cornish cross. Sorry.
Yeah. How many eggs a day did you say? How many?
We're doing probably about 18 million a day, something like that.
18 million eggs. Man, that's a giant. We could
Which is incredible, and thank you for doing what you do because that's real food. You can look at an egg and it's an egg, and you open up a box of Cheerios and it's just glyphosate and GMOs.
Right.
So wait a second. We never did finish answering our question about what was that question that we had, Ed? What was the question? Remind me again. We were talking about the how to pick the candidates. You said if we were to go to a delegate situation, and David Shelton derailed the question there. So David, if we were to go to just like the libertarians do, we have a convention, we pick our guys, we put them in. Will that end the corruption, or will that? I'm not going to say corruption. Will that end the cronyism?
It may on a state level, but on a local level, then you just have slating of candidates, and I think the situation would be exasperated even more on a local level for local offices.
Yeah, that may be too. John Rust, what do you think?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
It was if we were to, instead of going to these primaries, we would do a state do a delegate or a convention type of thing, like the libertarians do. They get together and they hash it out, and then they send a guy out into the wilderness to
Well,
be.
the taxpayers wouldn't be paying for it that way.
Yeah, Lucy's. You guys need to get together. I think there may be, a bridge here, a bridge that we could get across the River Kwai or something like that.
I like primaries too. I like primaries where people can participate and where people have a choice.
Oh boy, now he's like both ways. We can't. So I think we all can see that there's no perfect way. And I say every system's good until you add people, and they'll figure out a way to mess it around or do something to it. So, all right, John, we appreciate this. I think we're going to call it here because I think we're into the hour, and we appreciate you coming on here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Keep us posted on how this goes because we're all interested.
You'll be hearing about it. I'm very sure. It's this is something I feel strongly about. And I think it's something that's catching fire across the state because it's this 80% thing where people hear that they're not eligible to run for public office. They're like, why not? This is the United States. It's we the people, not you the people.
Yeah, it ain't that way. It's like the old George Collins said, it's a club and you ain't in it. Yep. So we thank you for coming on. We're going to do the conspiracy theory. So we will keep us posted again. Keep us posted.
I will.
For
Thank
that.
you very much.
Thanks for coming on.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hey, y'all, it's time for the conspiracy theory, so you better get your tinfoil hat out and let's see what's going on this week.
Woo! I just did get that thing going there, Ed. What kind of gum you chewing this week, Ed?
One with nicotine, lots of nicotine.
Yeah, teaching kids baseball make you more than be lucky it's just nicotine. Jeez,
yes,
those kids will make you crazy.
I didn't get the memo about a hat.
You don't have to. That's okay. Yeah. Well,
this isn't a hat. Yeah,
you said yes to this. Ed knows better, and this is what we get with him. But the tinfoil hat. I thought Charles was going to stick around. He was there for he's got a really good. He's got his hockey hat, and he's got stars. I mean, he really goes all out on the tinfoil hat thing. But no, you don't. You get a pass whenever we have guests on, and I try not to if a politician wants to, Charles he's game for all that stuff, but sometimes the conspiracy theory could be used against you in a later commercial or just being on our show could be used against you. I just asked Jefferson Shreve. Did you see what the Democrats did with Jefferson Shreve that was on our show? Probably not. So Jefferson Shreve came on the primary and he talked about, he was in his car. He was leaned back. He did a great interview. If he just would have stuck with that, he'd have been really good. But he made Lucy set him up and says, are you going to enact any rules or laws or ordinances that infringe on our liberties? And he said right there in that car, I'm not going to enact any new laws that's going to infringe on any of your rights. Well, then, by gosh, a month or so later, he says, I think I'm going to tell the legislator to tell you can't have any guns. And I'm like, George, this isn't good. And there we go. That was a short version of how that went down. So be careful what you say, David. If you want to run for Secretary of State again or anything else, be careful. I think that you know your way around the clerk's office, and I'm glad we had you on tonight because you did a little homework. Even though you got an invitation at 5 p.m. today to be on this, you came prepared. You got campaign buttons. You got a suit. Man, you're putting a new level of respect here.
David came loaded for bear. That was impressive. I'm not going to lie. I was like, put him on the spot, and then he had to act like he couldn't hear because he was in his tractor or whatever.
I think he was driving. Was he driving the bus?
I don't know. I couldn't tell from the ceiling, what it was, but I mean, I
was impressed.
You like had him sweating. That deposition ain't got nothing on David Shelton.
Yeah, well, and I've been in politics for about 5 years, and honestly, I could almost say, I voted in elections before. I can honestly say I got kids, I got work, I got all this. I got no time for politics until it started affecting my life personally here in Mars Hill. And I always will say, well, if you run for office and you piss off the mayor, these are all, letters from the health department and business services and all that I've gotten in the last 5 or 6 years. It ain't for the meek to run for this stuff because there's all these rules that they throw in and all that. And, I'm getting old. And by the time I figure out how to do this, I'll probably be dead. So, dead people can't hold office, I don't think.
That's the reason why I first got involved, too. About 12, 13 years ago, I got my toes stepped on by City Hall. Wasn't getting a fair shake at the city meetings. Wasn't getting a fair shake in a local paper. And, I created a local Facebook group. Currently have about 13,000 members here in my community. Prior to being a clerk, I've been a private investigator for about 25 years now, licensed in 3 states. So I just kind of created a new hobby for myself. I document and expose local political corruption on my little Facebook group. Not just with he said, she said stuff, but cold hard facts, documentation, and a lot of times video to back everything up. So that's kind of how I got started here.
Yeah, I feel like we should have a segment. David Shelton investigates. You could put a Columbo hat on it. Ma'am, I got one more question, ma'am.
I get calls from around the state for stuff like that.
Oh yeah, if I have a clerk question, I mean, your stuff. Are you going to run for something? Are you going to run again for something?
More than likely, just wait and see what happens. Trying to keep my options open. I'm in the first year of my second term as clerk, so I've got another 3 years to go here. Really, really enjoying my time as clerk. Never would have guessed I would love it so much. And my favorite part is the elections. I mean, it's just fascinating. It's the basis of our representative form of government. And, with my previous skill set, I dig deep into it. I probe my own system to make sure it's not susceptible to fraud. Now, as you indicated earlier, any system that involves humans can have problems, can have issues there. I did have a voter fraud case here in 2020. I had a gentleman attempt to vote 3 times due to human error. He was allowed to vote twice in that election. And I took it very personally. So I put on my PI hat. I documented all the evidence, put it in a written format that even an attorney could understand, and gave it to my local sheriff's department. The prosecutor used my written report verbatim as the affidavit of probable cause, and I did get a felony conviction on the guy. And we closed that avenue of fraud too. And
David Shelton reports. Yeah,
but
honestly,
you have single-handedly done more than the FBI has done on the Hunter Biden case. That's freaking impressive.
When they issued the arrest warrant, they couldn't find the guy. I put my hat on again. I tracked him down. I had a certified copy of the arrest warrant. I sat in front of his house and called the cops and said, "Come get him. I got a certified copy with me."
So what was his excuse? What was, you just want to cheat? Or, I mean, to me, that's like, I'm going to go create voter fraud today. Wow.
He never did explain. It was a plea agreement, pled guilty to a level 6 felony with other things being dropped. But my county committed 9 level 6 felonies and 2 A misdemeanors overall. I think he just thought he could get away with it and tried. And that was our last year when we had the old paper poll books. Poll books are clearly marked whether they voted absentee or early in person. And we had a newer poll clerk who didn't notice that. He showed up on election day to vote at his normal precinct, and they allowed him to vote. They didn't challenge him. So he had 2 votes that counted in 2020 here.
Was he a Democrat? I just have to ask.
I'm going to say yes, based upon his voting history. And if you're familiar with the absentee ballot applications, the form is the same for the primary and the general election. Well, this was for the general election, but he still marked the box that he wanted a Democrat ballot.
So in other words, he could run for office now because he's voted in 2 primaries at the same time.
The only thing that he violated was the sacred Democrat rule of your excess votes only come people.
It's like, well, I know a guy that got convicted for voting absentee for his dead wife. So yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say, if you guys have a segment, if we do get David for a recurring segment, that we name it On the Button with David.
On the button, that's man, Ed, we miss you. We miss your creativity.
That's the marketing right there. That's awesome.
If something mysterious happens to your baseball teams that you don't have them anymore, I didn't know what happened. I mean, did they vote in the last 2 baseball primaries? Maybe we could throw them out and then we can get you back on the show. But hey, we're supposed to be doing conspiracy theory, but this has been a very good talk. And we're lucky to have David Shelton on here because he's very knowledgeable about these things. and it's very interesting sometimes how things just fall together. It's just I was scrolling through and thinking, who could I get on here? I know Charles Bookwalter had issues, and I know David's really sharp in the voting stuff. So, and that paid off because I think you did have some very good questions for John. And you basically said, hey, if politics are so important, why didn't you vote? I mean, to me, that's part of it, but I can get it. I mean, you could be not paying attention, and then you say, hey, I want to get involved. Well, you can get involved in 4 more years after you vote twice. That. Okay, I see. But and they could do the old Republican trick. Well, why don't you run for school board? That's pretty much their standard policy. Run for school board, and if you win that, then we look at you or something. Yeah. So that's how it goes. So anyway,
it does take time to get consistency with our election laws. Every election law has an exception, except for ones that don't. For example, this year we had municipal elections, small town board members and clerk treasurers. Those races were omitted with that 2-party primary rule. For this last primary, you only had to have a 1 primary vote in history to run for small towns in Indiana. The law has changed with this last session, so it's going to be 2 primaries from here on out. But this year was the last year with just 1 primary vote in history for small towns.
Is that because that's what I say, a grandfather rule, I guess. Hey, let's give everybody a chance to comply.
Mm-hmm. It was just omitted from the legislation from a few years ago.
Our lawmakers missed something.
It happens. We got a couple other issues that have to do that or deal with next year on recent legislation. We have a new law where every candidate for a certain office has to appear on the same page of the ballot. Well, they didn't consider your state delegates, your precinct chairs, your school boards. So that's going to have to be amended next year to clean that up.
A lot of cleanup, a lot of, rules. They try to get this, try to omit this party and include that party. And it's just hard to keep up with sometimes. Well, we could do a whole show with you, David, about these things, and maybe we will, because it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff to keep track of, especially if you're going to run for office. So.
Can you just work with David and give him his own show? I mean, there is so much fraud.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we need a segment. David Shelton investigates or something like that, or on the button. That's like on the button. That's what we could do. I think that's cool, especially with the election coming up. And yeah, I know some other people that we could be some guests on there. But anyway, hey, this is the Mouthwash Show. We're supposed to do a conspiracy theory. Ed, what's your conspiracy? And it's better have Notre Dame football in it. I think they've been taken over by aliens or something. I don't know.
I'm actually blaming you, John, and I'm coming with it straight. My summer was humming along. My Dodgers were doing great. Notre Dame rolled out. They were looking good. And then suddenly this last weekend, the wheels fell off. Notre Dame loses to Louisville. Dodgers go down 0-2. I got nothing to do. And then lo and behold, John pops up and is like, hey, man, we need you on Tuesday to get on Mouthwash. And my sports seasons are pretty much ruined by now. And I figured the only way that could have happened is John called in some favors and undermined me just to get me on this show. So
yes, I called in some indigenous people to wait till you show up to practice next week and there's no kids there.
Yeah.
You're gonna say, what? This is Mouthwash has got a reach on it. So, look at Lucy's got like a bobblehead. Then maybe we can sell a Lucy bobblehead for this thing. So yeah, anybody that wants to do their campaign commercial or any kind of commercials on here, we do sell advertisement on this Mickey Mouse show. I got to pay for it somehow. I just write a check to pay for all this mess, but. Lucy, what's your conspiracy thing? We'll save David for last, and I might be able to think of something between now and then.
I'm just going to go ahead and kind of like clap right here so that it'll be easy for you to find this. And I'll clap at the end so that it'll be easy for you to edit this out. Because my conspiracy theory this week is actually very extreme. Like even more. And yes, Lucy, if you found me, Lucy for Liberty on Instagram. Even for me, this is an extreme conspiracy theory. I do want to give credit where credit is due, though, right? So if you're not already watching dollarvigilante.tv, if you're not already looking at Jeff Berwick, and actually he's got great crypto information, this was something that I actually got from his broadcast. So I don't want to take credit for it. And I don't want to say that this is something that I actually believe. I just think that we have to be very skeptical of anything that happens. So what I'm specifically referring to, of course, is the Hamas attack. The Rothschilds engineered World War I. They pressured Britain into giving Palestine to the Rothschilds in return for convincing the U.S. to enter the war. There's so much going on behind the scenes with World War I. And of course, we've had World War II, and certainly World War III would be even more profitable than the former two, right? Jeff Berwick posits that Baron Edmund de Rothschild founded the State of Israel, and including starting the Palestine Jewish Colonization Association, and he managed the acquisition of that land in Israel and appointed his son James Rothschild as its president. And finally, he claims, and he'll actually give you some citations for this, that Israel and the CIA actually created Hamas, and ISIS and Al-Qaeda were controlled in opposition to the ruling class's power gains, including making people believe that, and this I always thought was so stupid, like some guy on dialysis in a cave, is going to pull off 9/11. I mean, the way that you have to stretch your imagination in order to believe the narrative that is posited by mainstream media is always really crazy. And we're talking about a border. I mean, the border that was crossed, that was breached in order to have Hamas go through and just start killing people wholesale. I watched a video with a former Israeli, a female, former Israeli army troop, and she was explaining how, a kitten will set off that border, but somehow the border patrol was down to either zero or bare bones for the holiday. And so there were a lot of things that had to fall into place in order for that breach to have the massive kill. I don't want to say potential because obviously it happened. There are real people that died. So we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. And I just, like I said, you can edit this out. I'll clap here in a second. But I think that we should be asking more questions than we are. I don't support Israel. I don't support Hamas. What I want to know is I want to know what really is going on behind the scenes, because women and children were ruthlessly raped and murdered, and we deserve to know the truth.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's a lot of questions that can be asked from this. And, just think if I just wonder how many Israelis are armed. I wonder, I mean, do they have what's their policy on guns? I would think it's not very common. And I did hear a statistic here in our country that I think like only 30 something percent of our population actually own a gun. But I think they're actually shooting each other because it seems like we have a lot of gun violence here in Indianapolis. My thing is like, okay, this is a very good reason to arm yourself because our border is wide open and people can come in and they could be planning such an attack now. I mean, it's 20 years after 9/11. Back in 94, they tried to blow up the World Trade Center with bombs down in the bottom, and 7 years later, then they actually got it done with airplanes. Those are intricate plans. How do they keep these people,
Here's what I want to know. I want to know why a passport is ejected from a plane with fuel so hot that, jet fuel melted steel beams, but yet coincidentally, the perpetrator's passport is just laying on the sidewalk, not singed, in New York City. And then this happened again in France when they had the attacks on the newspaper. They found the terrorist, apparently these terrorists have a habit of committing terrorist acts with their passport and somehow leaving them behind, right? I mean, it just really stretches the limits of my imagination.
Well, it makes for good conspiracy facts and and all that, but I don't know. It's just very, very strange times we're living in, and it seems like we're definitely on a powder keg between Ukraine and China and Taiwan, and it just seems like it's very, very, very interesting. So, David, I should have let Lucy go last because anybody that goes after Lucy on conspiracy theory, you're already in second place or third, possibly. I mean, Ed's conspiracy caught me, so I don't know if that's conspiracy either. So what do you got?
Well, I don't have any specific ones there. I mean, everybody loves a good conspiracy theory. I see a lot of them on Twitter. I don't go down the rabbit holes, but I like peering down into them. And it seems like at least the last 6 or 8 years, the big difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth is 6 to 12 months. So, Lucy, you're not a conspiracy theorist. You're just prematurely correct.
Yeah, I mean, when
Thank
you
you
think
for that
about
acknowledgement. And by the way, let's see, who was it? Slickwitty, you were asking for, isn't the Rothschild's face on Israel currency? I'm going to post. Now, my posts are going onto YouTube. Oh, it won't. It say it's failed to post. Go look up Baron de Rothschild face shekel coin on eBay. You can actually find people selling those coins with Rothschild's face on it.
Oh, I long to have my face on a coin. It would be so fun. I don't know if we should make a mouthwash coin, make it crypto. So, but and I was thinking about, we've had until we've had these other current events happen. A lot of people are talking about Rome and how they devalued their currency, and they would actually clip the edges off of the coin to make some other coins, and they took out metals. And our penny isn't even a penny anymore. It's basically a slug wrapped in copper, and it's very similar to those type of things.
So,
Lucy,
yeah, I got to say something. So go to the website coinflation.com, and you'll see that the 1909 to 1982 pennies, it changed in 1982 to be zinc covered in copper rather than copper. And so a 1-cent coin from 1981 is actually worth 2.35 cents. It's worth 235% more.
Copper prices up.
Yes.
I mean, that was like when we needed nickel in the war. That's why we had 1943. We had steel nickels instead of nickel. So, because we needed it to be blowing up the Nazis.
Bad money drives out good. And this is something that I think is really interesting in light of the fact that Costco is now selling, 1-ounce gold bars. There's a guy named Jason Hansen that's a former CIA agent. He's actually been pretty good at making himself YouTube famous. He's been on, lots of news programs. And one of the things that he talked about, and I absolutely agree with, is, in a grid down situation, your 1-ounce your 1-ounce gold bar from Costco is going to be pretty much useless. People don't understand gold bars. They don't understand. Well, they understand coins, and a lot of people are like, "Well, what about the 1-ounce gold bars?" Because of the premium that's put on gold. So when you buy that 1/4-ounce gold coin, you're buying the amount of the gold plus a premium, so that the coin dealer can make a profit, right? So that the minters can make a profit. Of course, the ultimate mint that makes a profit is the U.S. Treasury, right? Because they print 1,000 pieces of paper with $1 in the corner. They deliver it to the Federal Reserve, and then the Federal Reserve pays them about $50 in printing fees. So $50 in printing fees gets you $950 worth of value if you have a big enough army to back up your inflation. But get yourself some coins. And if we go back to FDR, remember FDR made it illegal. He called in all the gold, and he made it illegal for people to own bullion. And I think that the numismatics were safe. And
what'd you say? Bless you.
Numismatics, collectibles.
Okay, I thought you sneezed or something there. I didn't know what that was.
It's ragweed season. That could happen.
Yes.
It's not the goldenrod, people. Goldenrod, by the way, those beautiful yellow plumes that you're seeing this time of year is not what's making you sneeze. And goldenrod is actually called Liberty tea. So when, they put all the tea into the harbor for the Boston Tea Party, Liberty tea, which is the goldenrod, is what people were using as a substitute.
Really? You can drink? I got some right there in the yard. At least
and you know what? Goldenrod is one of the best things for your respiratory system. So all those folks that are worried about COVID,
I'm going to try that because is it still got to be yellow when you get it? Because I think ours is a little dead out there. Is it?
Yeah,
dead?
But you know what? I bet if you go just a little bit further north, maybe you should go visit Ed. Ed, is the goldenrod still golden in your area?
I don't get outside very much during the day, so yeah, I have no idea.
You could ask your customers at Lowe's tomorrow about that. Is there a goldenrod section we can go to out in the garden So all
I
that
will have to go ask.
If they're not golden anymore, then they're turning to seed. So you should go get yourself like a brown paper bag and just flip them over and shake them into that brown paper bag, and then make sure that you plant them everywhere. They're one of the most beautiful things.
I don't got to plant them anywhere. The damn things come up on their own. So I'm trying. I wanted to pull them out, but Lisa says, "Well, I want them for my wedding flowers. People like the goldenrod." Now apparently I can have tea. So if there's any of them that are yellow, it's got to be yellow, right? Then you just
for the Libertarian Party, it needs to be yellow.
So I could probably be drinking dead goldenrods, but you're just not going to tell me that. So what do I got to do? Go out there.
Dead. The vitality's gone.
So if it is still yellow, I go out there and I cut it off of there, and then I put it in the water, or how do you make the tea?
Tea is so simple. You can make it with living, I say living, but basically fresh leaves. As far as I know, all parts of goldenrod are edible. So just go lop off a piece and put it in some hot water, and then you might want to strain it so that you're not drinking little plant. People
I'm
don't
a
like
tough
that.
guy. I'll probably eat the leaves and drink it with
just
some hot water.
salad. It's salad. It's roughage. I mean, who knows what kind of mucilage you can get
But
from
I'm not
that.
gonna die or anything. Okay, I'm gonna try it. If those things are still rolling out there, so that's good.
They're still down here in southern Indiana.
I don't know. It's been a really dry situation up here since about July. So mine's going to be Magic 8 Ball. So we're going to do Magic 8 Ball. We're going to ask questions. My first question is John Rust going to get on the ballot? So let's see what the Magic 8 Ball says. It says, my reply is no. And you know that this thing is accurate. So, and I think David Shelton already knows the answer to it as well. He doesn't even need a Magic 8 Ball. Next question. This one's for Ed. Is Notre Dame going to win this weekend? Let's see that. I got two for Ed. Let's see. My sources say no. I don't know. Hopefully they got an easy team. How about the Dodgers? Are they going to win their next game? Let's see. Better not tell you now. Boy, Ed, you're good. Now here's for Lucy. This one's for Lucy. Is her conspirafact true? Oh, here we go.
Uh-oh.
Ask again later. so
David already said 6 months.
Exactly.
Yeah.
6 to 12.
6 to 12. So there. Hey, this is unrehearsed. The 8 Ball does not lie. And I wanted to know that, Ed, I did predict that the Colts would win by 5 this weekend, but they would come in by 7. So that was well above the spread. So I don't wager any money on these things, but I was partially correct on occasion. So that was not a conspiracy theory. It did come true. All right. Well, hey, David, you've been a fabulous guest, and we will have you on a guest host, a guest panelist. We would love to have you back on a show here to talk about elections and things that we can do to bring that up. And I might be able to get a guest on here that was actually testified for the January 6th committee. He's a cyber security guy, and he was actually at the Lindell symposium. So you would love to talk to him, wouldn't you, David?
I'd be willing to give it a shot. Yeah.
All right, good. That would be good. Maybe we could even con Ed into coming back on again, maybe someday. So we wish you luck. Now, what is your record this year for your baseball team? Have they played anything yet, or are you just practicing a lot?
No, it's fall ball. It's basically like pickup ball, all fall. So yeah, there's no record. But
are you that guy that hits the ball out to him? And are you the guy that's got the bat and hits it out to him like this is a grounder and this is a fly? Are you that good? Can you do that?
No. Like I said, I had to run to first base today, and that was enough for me. I am dead.
I pulled a hammy. Hammy. All right. Well, hey, Ed, it was great seeing you. I know that people were excited to see you back on the show again. And I'll give you an update on, Brad Sawinski. He is at the Fish concert. He was at 3 concerts with them. He's got 2 more to go. He went to 5. He went to Nashville, to Dayton, to Cleveland. So he's actually following the Fish concert around. And who would have knew? He looked like a quiet librarian from Madison County, but apparently he's got a thing for the Fish concert. Do you know that band, Ed? You know Fish? Have you heard of them before?
I've heard of them. It's not my thing, but yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah. So, and he was supposed to do. So we had a big to do about the Hamilton County East Library Board. Ray Madone has resigned, and it caused a big they were up there spiking the football. We made him quit and all that. So, we lost it. We lost Dave. Well, we just lost him for a second. So he was going to do a little 2-minute explanation on Ray's departure, but he sent me a text that says his voice is gone from yelling at the Fish concert. So hopefully he has it back next week, and maybe we'll talk about that library board and all that. So, thanks a lot, guys, for being on tonight. This has been a fun show. A lot of people on here. We covered a lot of bases, and can't wait for the conspiracy theories to come true. So let me get the banner off the bottom here, and let's get this ready to send it home. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, David. Thanks, Lucy. Thanks, Ed. Catch you on the rebound. Yeah.